Today we're going to make a strawberry stracciatella cake. So this cake basically only has two components. So the first thing is a vanilla sponge cake, and the other thing is the yogurt cream stracciatella strawberry filling. We're going to start by making the sponge cake. So for the sponge cake you need 4 room temperature eggs. I've already just cracked mine in the bowl here. A splash of vanilla, a good pinch of salt, 125 grams of sugar, 150 grams of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and I'm also going to be adding in some dried lemon zest. Now I've shown you a bunch of times already how I make my sponge cake, but basically all we're going to do is add our eggs, sugar, salt, and vanilla into our KitchenAid and let that whisk for about 15-ish minutes or until it's tripled in size and you can't feel any sugar in between your fingers anymore. While that is whisking up, we're going to sift together all of our dry ingredients and set them aside. Now you can always separate your egg whites and your egg yolks and whisk them up separately and then fold them into each other. It's basically the same thing, this just saves you a step and a lot of dishes, so I'm just gonna do that today. That being said, before I forget, I'm going to preheat the oven to 180 degrees Celsius or 360 degrees Fahrenheit. The eggs are super fluffy now, and it's definitely a lot lighter in color as well. And I also can't feel any sugar in between my fingers. Now the last thing we have to do is add in our dry ingredients. So I'm going to do this in like 2 batches and I'm going to double sieve it. So I'm going to sieve it again as I let it go into my bowl. So I'm going to start by just doing maybe half. And you want to really take your time and patience with this, and you don't want to go too fast, and you really just want to go nice and slow and try to keep as much air in this as you can, because that's what's going to give you a really light and fluffy dough in the end. Kind of just taking from the middle and then going to the outsides, and there's going to be like flour pockets. That's okay, you're trying to get rid of those. Okay, that's pretty much all incorporated, so I'm going to add the rest of my dry ingredients. I'm just going to transfer this into my pre-lined baking tray. Now I only lined the bottom, you don't want to line the sides. This is just going to bake for around 30-35 minutes or until the top is super nice and golden brown and you can stick a toothpick in the center and it comes out clean. Now for the stracciatella filling, you're going to need some sort of chopped chocolate or chocolate sprinkles. So these ones would be ideal. So these are kind of like these thin chocolate shards. But if you can't get those where you are, you can also just use some chocolate sprinkles. The flavor might be a little different, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take some of this baker's chocolate and chop it up with a knife until it kind of gets the size that I want. Now I've got around 100 grams left, which is the amount that you're going to want. For the filling, you're going to need 1 bunch of strawberries, 500 milliliters of heavy cream, our chopped chocolate, 500 grams of plain Greek yogurt, 20 grams of powdered sugar, a splash of vanilla, and 1 package of gelatin. I'm going to start by just chopping up my strawberries nice and small to bite-sized pieces. All the strawberries are chopped up, and I've saved 5 strawberries in case I want to use them for decoration on top of the cake. So I'm just going to set those aside, and I'm going to continue with the actual filling. For this filling, we're going to be using gelatin. So the first thing we're going to do is just add our gelatin into a little pot with a splash of water, and then just set that aside to bloom for about 10 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to whisk up our cold whipping cream with the powdered sugar and the vanilla, and then add in the Greek yogurt once it's nice and stiff. The whipped cream is at stiff peaks, so now I'm going to gradually add in all of this Greek yogurt until it's all super combined. So the gelatin has bloomed for about 10 minutes. Now I'm going to heat this up on medium-low heat just until it's completely dissolved. So I'm going to do that quickly before gradually tempering it with the Greek yogurt cream filling. The gelatin's completely dissolved, so I'm going to go ahead and add about 1 scoop-ish of this mixture and quickly mix it around to get the temperature of the gelatin to be similar to that of this. I'm going to do that 1 or 2 more times. So now they're about the same temperature, so I'm going to go ahead and fold all of this into the rest of the cream mixture. Now the consistency of your cream is going to be a little bit thinner than it was before because we added the gelatin, but don't be afraid, it'll just thicken once it cools. Now I'm just going to fold in the strawberries and the chopped chocolate. Now I already cut my sponge cake into 3 different layers, and so now that the filling is done and our sponge cake is done, we can get to layering the cake. So I'm going to start by adding one of my cake layers inside of this handy dandy little ring that can be adjusted around the cake, and then add half of my filling and repeat the process. needs to chill for at least 4 hours to let the gelatin harden. But I'm just going to put this into the fridge overnight and then finish the cake tomorrow. As you can tell, it's the next day, so I just took the cake out of the fridge. I'm going to start by just removing it from the ring. Okay, so I've decided for the decoration, I kind of wanted to keep it a bit of a naked cake, but also do a drip going down the sides. So I think I'm just going to whip up some whipped cream and cover the top and a bit of the sides just to get them nice and smooth. And I'm also going to make a really quick chocolate ganache to drip down the sides. Okay, so for the whipped cream, I have no idea what the measurements are. I just kind of go for it. So I'm going to do... That looks like 300 milliliters of cream-ish. Also going to do like a nice splash of vanilla. That's good. And like maybe like 2 teaspoons of sugar. And then once it starts thickening up, I'm also going to add in 1 powder of this whipped cream stabilizer thing called zest. I'm going to do a quick crumb coat with the whipped cream I just whipped up. I'm also going to transfer this onto a nicer cake platter. I'm also going to quickly cut the strawberries that we saved from yesterday, and I'm just going to cut them in half, and I'm going to keep the green part on because I think it looks prettier. But you could also dip these into the ganache if you want like chocolate covered strawberries. Okay, so for the chocolate ganache drip, I'm going to use 100 milliliters of heavy cream and 100 grams of dark chocolate chips. So all I'm going to do is bring the cream up to a boil on the stove in this little pot. And then once it's boiled, I'm just going to pour it over my chocolate chips, let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then give it a good whisk until it's super creamy and all the chocolate chips are melted. The ganache has set for about 10-ish minutes, so I'm just going to give it a quick mix. So I'm just going to let this sit for another 10-ish minutes just to let this thicken a little bit so it doesn't drip all the way down the cake. Now to do the actual chocolate drip, I like using a plastic bag that I just cut the tip off of. So an easy way to get all the ganache into the bag without it going everywhere is opening it around a glass, and then you can just pour it in. Okay, so now I'm just going to drip the ganache down the sides and then cover the top as well. I'm just going to smooth that out using my little spatula here. Okay, the ganache has pretty much set now, so it's not quite as runny. So I'm just going to finish the cake by decorating with some leftover whipped cream and those strawberries that we cut. Other than that, you can decorate however you want. I'm probably also going to write happy birthday on it because this is for someone's birthday. And yeah.